It's time to share secrets and insights from fellow entrepreneurs. If you're looking to grow or start a business and you're a game changer, then keep listening to Avanti Entrepreneur for great advice from your host, Dave Mammano, America's entrepreneur coach.
Hey, Avanti Tribe, Dave Mammano here. Just want to thank our sponsor, Paychex. You know, Paychex, they make it simple for businesses of all sizes to pay and manage their team. They make payroll easy with employee pay options, including direct deposit, checks, pay cards, and so much more. Founded over 4 decades ago to relieve the complexity of running a business so that the owners can focus on what matters most. Above all else, and more than any other company, Paychex makes it simple. Visit AvantiEntrepreneurGroup.com. Go to our partner link and check them out. They're offering you a free month of payroll just for giving them a shot as an Avanti Tribe member. Give them a shot, folks. They really help this podcast to be possible. Really appreciate Paychex. Now, enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the Avanti Entrepreneur Podcast and Show. I am Dave Mammano, your host, and we are here to help entrepreneurs, business owners, achievers, and leaders move forward so that they can reach their potential. I do this by interviewing great movers and shakers. Today I have on the show a great mover and shaker. Very excited to talk to Jay Owen. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, David.
Appreciate it. I feel I'm having deja vu because last week I was just on your podcast, so this is fun, right?
That's right. You were episode, or going to be at this point, it's not actually released yet, but you're going to be episode 42 of Excellent. Building a Business That Lasts. That's exciting.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think I've been doing this for 2 years straight. I got to look what episode you're on. I think you're going to be about 110, 112, something like that. So,
nice.
Yeah. And just the consistency of doing a podcast for 2 years has put me in the top 30% of all podcasts listened to. And so my producer told me that, and I said, holy cannoli. I said, I should be really famous by now, you know? And I said, well, we're getting there. But really what it is, and for all you podcasters out there that are doing it, or podcasters that are thinking about starting a podcast, the average podcaster lasts 12 episodes, right?
Wow.
And, just the endurance, the consistency, and I'll say the compound effect of doing a podcast every week really is going to put you among the top 30%. And just like anything else, right? Just the discipline of doing it over and over again. So, Jay, I want to read your bio, and then we're gonna dig into your journey. So, for 20 years, Jay Owen has been building Design Extensions, a Florida-based marketing agency that's grown its revenue and profits every year since 1999. Increasing the company's revenue every single year hasn't been easy, but in doing so, Jay has learned that building a thriving business is possible, and that you don't have to sacrifice family or quality of life to do it. Jay has built Design Extensions while also being an invested husband to his wife, Claire, and the father of, oh my God, 5 children. God bless you. And are you a farmer on the side? Do you need these kids to do
No, but they are homeschooled, so there's that.
Wow. You got a field in the back that they're plowing, right?
Yeah.
In Jay's book and his podcast, Building a Business That Lasts, he shares all his most sought-after advice for aspiring business owners and entrepreneurs who reject the endless hustle and instead embrace the idea of a better way to succeed. Well, that sounds awfully nice. Jay, let's start off with your book. And you actually have a free book offer at your website, getjaysbook.com. So audience, check that out. We'll put that in the show notes. So first of all, I want to ask you, how did you end up writing a book? Because a lot of Avanti Entrepreneur listeners and viewers are thinking about writing a book. And it's great, obviously, for to establish thought leadership and to help people and to obviously market yourself and your business. So if you don't mind, tell us about the logistics of actually writing the book and getting it published, and then what is the book about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've been kind of that lifelong entrepreneur. I started as a really young kid, pulling a wagon around, selling concession stands out of it. And then I had a lawn business. And since then, I've been growing Design Extensions from the age of 17. So for quite a few years, I've had people go, oh, you should write a book. You should write a book. A lot of people hear that. And you think, oh, maybe I will, but I'm just not old enough yet, and I just don't have enough experience yet, and all that kind of self-doubt kind of creeps in. And I actually went to an event by Dave Ramsey called Entre Leadership Summit, and I got to listen to a lot of great speakers, and a couple of them, I was just listening to them and really inspired, and I just felt like, you know what, I'm going to finally do what I said I've been talking about doing. I'm going to finally write the book. And I think I'm going to do a podcast too. So I started a podcast while I actually started writing the book. I actually wrote the first chapter of the book on the airplane home from that event. And, the process for a lot of people, it's so daunting to think about writing a whole book. And for me, I'm actually a really slow reader. So the idea of writing a book and then reading back my own stuff was a little bit overwhelming, but I just took it one step at a time, scheduled it, was really intentional about it, and tried to put together kind of a brain dump of everything I was thinking about idea-wise, put that on a sheet of paper. Then I started to organize that into a little bit more of an outline and process. Talked to a couple of other people, business owners that I know that had written books successfully and done a great job. And I got one of their editors. She was actually a structural editor, which I didn't even know what that was at the time. But she helped me put together kind of the framework of it. So I gave her all my ideas. She's like, well, put this here, put this there. And she kind of helped me organize it because I'm not very good at that. So I always believe in finding people who are better at what you do than you are, and kind of fulfill your weaknesses, which she did for me. And then I just took it one chapter at a time. She actually put together a calendar for me and made me stick to it. I had somebody that held me accountable. I think that's really important. And so we had a weekly phone call. We'd follow, hey, what have you written this week? Here's what I wrote. She'd read through it. We'd have comments on it. And literally it all just was in a Google Doc online. Just kept writing it. 1,500 words at a time is basically what I did. I'd sit down and write 1,500 to 2,000 words. And if I felt like I was going to keep going, I'd keep going. If not, I would get to that point, stop, and start again the next day. And I actually would separate myself from the office. That was a big thing that helped me as well. Instead of coming into the office or trying to do it at home, there's actually a nice hotel between my office and my house, and with a really big lobby with good Wi-Fi that's open to the public and has a coffee shop. So I would go in there, and that's where I wrote from. I'd go in there, put my headphones on, sit down, get a cup of coffee, and just write. And it was a lot of fun to be able to put my story on pages and share ideas that I think really can help other people build a business that lasts. I think we live in a culture where there's so much, wanting to get rich quick and lose weight quick and all these other things. Like, we all want those things. But as Dave Ramsey often says, he's like, people always told me that I was an overnight success. And he said, yeah, I busted my tail for 20 years, and then I was an overnight success.
Right. Yeah. Jerry Seinfeld, overnight success 15 years later, right?
Yeah, same thing.
That's great. So as many of us are doing, and I published 2 books myself, I self-published them. Is that what you did as well?
Yeah, I ended up self-publishing it, went through Amazon. It was a great process. And what's really cool about their platform is you can actually, like right now, if somebody goes and buys my book off of Amazon, which I wouldn't do that because you can go get a free copy like you mentioned earlier at getjaysbook.com. But on Amazon, if they order it, they'll actually print it and ship it at the same time, which is great because I don't have to have a huge inventory that may or may not sell that's sitting in the back somewhere. It all is printed on demand now, and it still looks really high quality. So it's pretty cool.
And what is that? Is that service called Create from Amazon?
Yeah, so they used to have a service called Create Space. That was what it was called. But now Create Space, which is Amazon's product, has been merged into another one. I think it's called Kindle Direct Publish or something like that. So it does the ebook stuff and the printed books. And you can get, really low cost samples sent to you so you can kind of see what they look like. And that's a great path for anybody out there that's wanting to write a book and give it a try because there's no setup costs. You could literally upload a Word document. It's going to look kind of trashy, but you could upload a Word document and they'll print it like a book. They give all the guidelines for it, or you can have a professional designer put it together, which fortunately I run an agency, so I have designers on staff that could do that for me.
You had a couple of people.
Yeah.
And obviously if someone, buys the book through Amazon, you're making some money off it too.
Yeah, absolutely. You can set your price on there, and then Amazon does take a pretty healthy cut of the commission, but they're printing it, they're taking the money, they're shipping it, they're delivering it. It's total hands-off dollars selling a book. So it's a good setup.
Beautiful, beautiful. So Jay, I would love to hear your story. So your company's called Design Extensions, which some people may think that you're like do home improvement or interior decorating, but you don't, right? So
some people think it's hair extensions, so that's even funnier.
Oh, I never would have thought of that. I've never had one of those yet. So, but would love to hear. So it's a marketing agency. So you're, a modern day ad agency, we'll say, right? I mean, people say I'm a digital marketing agency. Well, that's what advertising is these days a lot, right? So it's like you're really an ad agency, a marketing agency, and And there's a lot out there, right? I mean, we were talking a little bit before the show that it seems like every other millennial I meet is a digital marketer working out of their house. And there's just so many people doing this, some well, some not well. Some are making it look like hocus pocus behind the curtains, and it's really not that difficult. You just got to do the work and know what to do. What is your secret sauce? What makes design extensions? I mean, you've been profitable every year since 1999. Congratulations. Why are people coming to you, and how are you keeping them and helping their businesses grow?
Sure. I mean, I think it's a couple of things. One is its commitment, which is one of our core values, and relationship. Like you said, we have been here a long time, and there's a lot of value in that for people, because when you go to set up a website, it can be really simple. You can use a free service like Wix.com or Squarespace or anything like that, and you can put together a pretty decent little website. But what we help do is provide a full team that's able to do more than just put a website online. So back in the day, people would come to us and say, hey, we want to build a website. And I'd say, great. And they'd say, here's the things we want to put on there. And then we'd put them on there and make their website live, and that was it. That doesn't really work anymore, because they could just go do that on their own. And so now we're really a lot more about taking a step back and asking the question of, well, why do you want to build a website? And what's the messaging that you want to communicate on there? And who are you trying to attract? And what are the goals that you're trying to achieve? So we take a lot more strategic approach now. And we're not huge. We're a team of about 15 people. But that's a good size, because within that size, I'm able to have all these different expertises that can come together. So back in the day, it was just me, one man dog and pony show. And that was great. And there's still a lot of great young folks out there doing the same thing. Everybody's got to start somewhere. But the value of what we have now is, one, we've proven over time we're not going to disappear overnight. That's a really big deal. And two is that we have the internal team now to provide everything from understanding the strategy of why you want to do a particular marketing activity, whether it's building a website or updating your social media or creating paid ads or running an SEO account or any of the other number of things out there, and figuring out what's the best use of those dollars. Because unfortunately, a lot of money gets wasted on marketing that's not clear and effective, and our job is to help make it clear and effective.
Awesome. That sounds great. I mean, at the end of the day, you're right. I think, people say, relationships don't matter as much anymore. And I say that means they should matter even more, because that's how you're going to stand out and be different. I was talking to Jeffrey Gittimore, who's kind of the king of sales, Little Red Book of Selling, written many, many books and articles and business journals around the country. Yeah. And I had him on my podcast, and he said something great. He's like, you know what? Jeffrey Bezos is not going to come to your house for coffee, or he's not going to send you a birthday card, right? He's not going to take you out to breakfast. And meaning that, but you can, right? Meaning like us guys, we're going to beat Amazon at their game. Probably not, but what can we win at, and how can we personalize that service? So that does not become a commodity, and you can stand out, because I don't care how much the internet, et cetera, and technology takes over the world, and it's going to more and more. People love people. People want to be around.
That's right.
People. We need it, otherwise we go crazy, right? And so if you could carve out your niche and own whatever you're doing, by really going the extra mile to establish that trust and relationship, then you'll carve out a nice business for yourself. Maybe you're not going to be $1 billion, but heck, if you're a small business doing a few million with nice margins, that's a beautiful lifestyle, right?
That's right. And I think that ultimately, sometimes that's a big mistake a lot of business people make is, I'm not saying don't be over ambitious. I mean, I've read Grant Cardone's 10X, and it's great. Like I love that energy and attitude, but also one of my favorite books I just read this past weekend is by a guy named Jason Fried. He runs a company called Basecamp.com. And the title of the book is something like, "It doesn't have to be crazy at work," something like that. And that book is basically the total opposite of something like 10X by Grant Cardone. But I love both of those because to me, everybody's got to decide what works for them. And that might be different in a different season of life. I mean, shoot, when I wasn't married and I was a single college kid and I had no kids, I could work, a lot of hours in a week, and I enjoyed it. It wasn't stressful for me. I liked that stuff. I could sit behind my computer all the time and learn and work and do all these things. Well, now I've got 5 kids, so I'm usually there for breakfast. I'm usually there for dinner. I could work harder and longer and make more money, but I'd have to sacrifice things I'm not willing to sacrifice to do that.
Yep. Yeah. Now that's great. And I agree. I read 10X and I got to read Jason Fried's book too, but it's all about what's right for you.
That's right.
You know, there's I just was at a presentation where Danny Schumann, who is going to be in my podcast soon as well, big time ad agency guy in New York, in Chicago, left, started his own business. And he's doing it his own way, right? And then he profiled this guy who was in Inc. magazine, built a multi-million-dollar company, doing very well, but was bragging that he literally works, sleeps, eats at the office, right? And some people were like, you know, oh, that's too much. And he said, no, it's not. If it's working for him, if that's what he wants to do at this stage in his life, great. But
Right.
that's not for me. Like Grant Cardone's lifestyle, good for him. Love it. He's very inspirational. Do I want that? You know, do I want his money? Absolutely. Do I want that lifestyle? I don't know. You know, I prefer more of a mix, I guess, you know, so.
Well, and it's the same thing with like someone like Gary Vaynerchuk, who I absolutely love. I mean, the guy's a social media genius. I've been fortunate enough to meet him a couple of times, and he's just as sincere in real life as he says he is online, which is always nice to meet people like that. But he's a hustler. You know, he's up at 5 a.m. and he's not back home until 11 o'clock at night. And he basically kind of lives off the mentality that his weekends are sacred and his vacations are sacred. And that's where he kind of excels at the extremes with his family. When he's there, he's 100% there. And when he's gone, he's 100% gone. And that works for him. That wouldn't work for me. You know, like my wife would not be happy if I was not home until 11 o'clock every night. But for him and his wife and their family, and they have very, very young children, that works for them. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. And that's one of the things I say in my book is ignore the system, but have a system. You got to have your own plan, even if it's not what somebody else's plan is.
Yep. And I bet you wouldn't be happy either if you weren't home with your 5 kids every night, right? So.
No, absolutely not. I mean, they already complain about me going to work as it is, and I work a pretty casual schedule compared to a lot of folks. So they're spoiled.
Are you guys working on number 6?
No, but my youngest, who's 5, and she's a handful. Mercy. My 2 youngest, so we had 3 boys, then we adopted 2 little girls, and my youngest told us the other day, it's been a couple of weeks ago now, that she's going to have a baby sister, and that her sister's name is Eleanor. And I'm like, baby, we're not having a baby sister. She's like, yes, we are, and her name's Eleanor. And so she will literally come in the mornings. I kid you not. She's done this for weeks now, and she'll come in our room and she'll say, Mommy, when's Eleanor coming? And she's like, baby, we are not having a sister. So I'm hoping doesn't have like a prophetic word or something. I mean, at this point, like one more would not be that big a deal. I just don't really want to start all over. I'd rather, like, if I was going to have another child, it'd be like adopt a 4 or 5-year-old and not start in babyland again.
Maybe seeing something you guys are
it's possible.
Would that be something, you know? Yeah, you could be, get another girl, you have the Brady Bunch, right?
That's right.
Yeah, very cool. So, Jay, how did you end up, by your bio and knowing a little bit about you, you started young in the whole entrepreneurial world. And how did that happen? Do you think it was just in your blood? Were you kind of born to be an entrepreneur?
I think there is like a bit of that's in your blood. I think that, but it's also things that you see around you. My grandfather started a restaurant business back in the day in South Georgia, ended up growing a restaurant chain and then selling it. And then my uncle runs an insurance business. So I got to see in the family other people who ran their own businesses. And that, I think maybe that encouraged me to want to kind of do my own thing as well. You know, the first business I ever ran, I was at a baseball field, and we didn't have a concession stand. And so I told Mom, hey, we could probably sell some Cokes to these people and, snacks and stuff. So she took me to Costco, or actually Sam's Club, not Costco. And I loaded up my little red wagon and took it around. It's the traditional lemonade stand. I actually tell this story in the book. It's the traditional lemonade stand, but where people actually needed the product or service. The biggest problem that most kids have with doing a lemonade stand is they're doing it in locations where people don't want lemonade. But the beauty of that particular model was I had this wagon that I could wheel around a baseball field that had no concession stand, where people were hungry and thirsty and wanted snacks. And I could sell them out of that cart. It was a right location where people needed, wanted, and desired that product or service. Plus, I was like a cute 8 or 9-year-old wheeling my wagon around. Why would you not give me $1 for a Coke?
I love it.
Now you need a permit to do that, but back then I didn't.
When you're 7.
So that's kind of the first story.
What are they going to do? Arrest you when you're 7 years old, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of the first story of how I got started. And then from there, it was just one thing after another. I started a lawn business. business. I got to work for a web design company when I was really young. I was 15, just turned 16 years old. Got to work for them for a couple of years as like a summer internship. Well, it was an internship that turned into a couple of years. They got bought out by a big company, and I thought, I think I could do this on my own and make a lot more money and have a lot more fun.
Yeah.
And that's where Design Exceptions started in 99. It was actually me and a friend in high school for the first 6 months or a year, and then he decided to go off to college and didn't want to do the business. And I floundered through it for a few years and started to figure it out.
Very awesome. Very awesome. So, some people say entrepreneurs are made or wonder if they're, born or made, I should say. I would say both, but I would say, there's something to the thing that you're born. It's like kind of your almost an instinct,
Yeah.
Just like some people are born to be engineers and some people are born to be salespeople. Like, could I be an engineer? I guess so. Would I be a good one? No way, right? I could go to school and learn, but it's just not in my innate skills. And you doing that selling the lemonade at the baseball game, you're kind of the original food cart, I guess, right? So,
right. Yep.
And I look at me, I'm up here in upstate New York, and what do you think of in February in upstate New York?
Probably snow.
A little snow, right?
Yeah.
And so I was 6 years old. February break, and I was bored. I told my parents I'm going to go shovel driveways and make some money, and they were like, "Okay." This is back in the day when a 6-year-old could just go outside, no problem, right? And so I start knocking on doors, and people are telling me, "Oh, Dave, we already have a plow service, or son daughter does it, etc." Because it was February by that time. So I got a little discouraged, and I'm walking home, shovel in hand, and kind of head down. And I joked that, I must have been stopped in my snow tracks with an idea, because I did have an idea. I said, just like you said, I'm going to capitalize on the fact that I'm a cute 6-year-old kid. I'm going to go to the next street. I'm going to shovel the driveway first, and then go to the door and put on my cute little face, 6-year-old face, hold the shovel a certain way, and say, "Hi, I'm David Mammano, and I shoveled your driveway." And lo and behold, man, everyone except one person, and I'll always remember Mr. Myrath. And everyone gave me $1, $5. Someone, Mrs. Epstein, gave me $20. I remember this, right? I came home with a pocket full of money.
Yeah.
And so I think that looking back, that was probably the first, sign that I was supposed to be an entrepreneur, right? So, whereas engineers are, they're probably staying inside, taking apart the radio and figuring out how to put it together unsuccessfully at that point. But I do think I think it's a little bit of both, but I definitely think successful entrepreneurs, you can look back at their past and say, yeah, looks like he or she was kind of born to do that,
Yeah, well, it's kind of that nature versus nurture question, and I think, I agree. I think it's both. I think you can definitely be born with a little bit of that spirit in you, just like some people are born to be more athletic. Some people are born to do more math. Some people, but I don't think that means it totally excludes you if you don't feel like you had that from the beginning. I think, like I said, you can learn a lot of those skill sets that are required, but right. I think that there is a certain drive that kind of forces you into that. I'd probably be a horrible employee somewhere.
Yep. Oh yeah, you're unemployable by now. 20 years, you're unemployable for sure. So Jay, you got 5 kids, a wife, you got a thriving business. You look really calm and cool and collect, and you look healthy, right? And you don't look like you are about to go crazy, unless you have some primal scream room someplace that you go and put on steam. So I'm interested in some of your habits to make sure that you keep the wheels on the bus.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was learning when to say no. One thing somebody said to me one time that was really valuable was every time you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to 1,000 others. Yeah. And because inevitably when you're a people pleaser like I am, and you want to make everybody happy, which somebody eventually told me that's because of my own ego, because I want them to like me, which is probably true, unfortunately. But the reality is when you want to make everybody happy, you want to say yes. And there's so many good things, especially as you move forward in life, there's all kinds of good opportunities to be involved with, and learning what to say yes to and what to say no to has been huge to me, and putting boundaries in place on life and saying, hey, the majority of the time for me in this season of my life, I'm going to be home for dinner. That's a choice that I've made. That's a boundary wall. And so when somebody wants to break that boundary wall, it better be exceptionally important, and it better be very rare Otherwise, that boundary can't be broken. And somebody goes, hey, we got a special, after hours, this and this. And I'm like, no, sorry, I don't do those. And people are like, well, if you did this, you could meet so-and-so and something. Like, I know, but that's the boundary that I put in place for me. I think knowing when to say no, putting the right boundaries in place, and then really blocking out time on your schedule for yourself for whatever it may be, to prep for a podcast or to read a book or to go for a walk or to whatever. People allow other people to dictate their schedule. And as a result, they live in a constant whirlwind versus going, no, I'm going to dictate my schedule. An example of this, on Friday afternoons, my schedule is always booked out from 3 to 5, and it just says weekly wrap up. Now, I might have different things that I do in that time period, but that's my time period. If you were to want to book a podcast with me or me book a podcast with you at Friday at 3 o'clock, it's not going to happen. That time is sacred. And so, like, being willing to go, no, I'm blocking this time for me, for whatever I happen to need, that's been really huge for me too.
Good for you. Yeah, great example. Well, you're following in the footsteps of Warren Buffett. When asked his secret for success, that's what he said. That he says no 99 times out of 100, and he said it's difficult. He stated that a lot of the things look really fun, and he would love to do them, but he needs to stay super hyper focused on that one thing. And because it's very easy for entrepreneurs to get pulled in many different directions. Let's grab coffee. Let's grab a drink after work. Hey, there's this event, blah, blah, blah. Before you know it, you're like, what the hell did I get done this week? Right. Yeah. So, good for you. And obviously having 5 kids, I'm sure your wife is very grateful that you've created that boundary around the dinner time. So, and I do that too, for the most part. I would say I'm home most nights for dinner, and you'd be surprised. A lot of families don't do that anymore. They with sports, etc. They're grabbing on the go. And, for me, that's sacred time, an hour at the dinner table every night. That's I do go to church every weekend, but that's our church, right? I mean, that's where we're breaking bread and talking and, asking the kids how their day was and, sharing our incredible wisdom, right?
But that's hard, like I don't want to make it out like I've just got it all figured out, because I certainly don't. I mean, just yesterday I just had back-to-back meetings. I'd kind of let my schedule get filled up with other things that needed to get done. And it was all things I needed to do. And, 5:30 rolls around and I'm like, I got to leave. And I just have a whole nother day's worth of work to do. Yeah. And so to be willing to go, okay, I'm going to close this laptop now and I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to go home. That was hard. And it was even harder back in the day because I worked at home for 16 years. I worked remote. We just put an office in a couple of years ago. Okay. And that worked great for a long time. But knowing one of the things I always said about working from home for anybody that may be working from home currently is it's really hard. The best thing about working from home is that you never have to go to work. The worst thing is you never get to leave. And learning how to create that separation and that boundary again has been really important for me. But it's still hard. I've been doing it for 20 plus years, and I still have to consciously fight that urge to keep working because I'm a recovering workaholic. So.
Yeah. Well, better than a recovering alcoholic. So.
That's true.
Very good. So, Jay, before we go, a lot of our Avanti tribe is our, beginning to middle stage entrepreneurs, right? And they're learning, they're growing, they're making mistakes like all of us, and they're riding that roller coaster hard. You remember the first couple of years? It's you envision who you want to be. It's just you're not there yet, right? So, from a perspective of your experience. And let's say one of these entrepreneurs comes to you and says, Jay, I've been an entrepreneur for 2 years. I've grown the business, to a few $100,000. I'm struggling to get to the next step. What would you tell that person? What would you tell a person to say, hey, it's going to be all right, and here's what I think you need to do?
The hardest thing, but the most helpful thing for me has been learning to put the right systems and processes in place. Naturally, a lot of entrepreneurs like me kind of are fly by the seat of their pants, figure it out as you go type of folks, and finding the right processes and systems to put in place has been really helpful. Probably the 2 most helpful things for me as far as like educational material. One was a book by Dave Ramsey called EntreLeadership, really powerful framework for me. I didn't go to business school. I dropped out of college. And so I don't have that, structured educational background that might have helped me with some of the process stuff. And then the other one that we've started implementing the last couple of years is a book called Traction. And that book is really super detailed on here's how to run a company. I think that most people can kind of stressfully wing it to $1 million in revenue and about 8 to 10 people. Anything over 8 people and $1 million, you have to have much better processes in place to go to the next level. I think there's these brackets of where people go. There's like 0 to 100,000. There's like 100,000 to $500,000. There's $500,000 to $1 million, and then it's like $1 million to $3 million, 3 to 6, 6 to 10. Like it's just kind of what I've seen from people, and having those systems in place. Those 2 books were probably 2 of the most helpful things for me to get out of my crazy cycle and get into here's how to run a business. Because there's a difference between owning a business and owning a job. And a lot of people think they own a business, but they actually just own a job, and they might even be better off going and working for somebody else because they're probably working 100 hours for 30 hours worth of pay. And there might be people listening that feel like that. And in order to run a business, eventually it's got to be able to run without you. And that has been a big takeaway for me over the last couple of years. It's all really I've been focused on for the last 5 years is how can I make this thing run without me? Because I was the cornerstone for so long. That's been really hard, but those process books, especially Traction, have been huge for me.
Yeah, Traction has been a powerful book in my business as well. I've read the book 3 times. I've interviewed a lot of EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System implementers, on my show. In fact, most recently, just a couple of weeks ago, Marissa Smith, who now actually works for Gino Wickman in the organization.
Oh, wow.
And you may have heard of Mike Payton, who's kind of the number 2 over there. Gino Wickman, as you know, wrote the book and really kind of revolutionized a lot of small businesses and medium-sized businesses to grow.
Oh, yeah.
And I had Mike. He goes by Payton, his last name instead of his first name. Payton was on the show as well. And it's, if you haven't read the book, incredible book. They have other books called Get a Grip and Rocket Fuel, which are very helpful as well. One of those books is kind of a fable, right, of a company that went through EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So it's kind of like an engine for your business, right? And,
That's right.
With dashboards and all that great stuff. So that's great that you do that. And like you said, you got 15 people. So you're not like this huge business. So which goes to show that even, businesses with not a ton of people, this could be very helpful, right? Very helpful to have you guys just, continue to grow and scale every year. Yeah,
absolutely. And we used a company, I think you mentioned implementers and using somebody to help you through the process. I think that reading the book is the good first step, but then getting somebody to help you through it is really helpful. You don't necessarily have to have a full-time implementer, but we used a company out of Nashville, a guy named Tom Barrett and his wife Tracy run that organization called Navigate the Journey, and they were really helpful. We actually went through a different program originally called StratOps, which is kind of like Traction and EOS, but it's more about like your core values and who you are and what you believe and how your past dictates your future and things like that. And that was a good kind of first step for us. And now we're into full implementation of Traction, and it's created a lot of traction in business. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Very good, Jay. This has been fabulous. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your talents and success with the Avanti Tribe. We truly appreciate that. I'll say it again. If you want to get Jay's book, guys, for free, you want to go to his free website, getjaysbook.com. Pretty simple to remember. I'll also have it in the show notes. And also, he's got a great website called Building a Business That Lasts. So you can go to that as well. Once again, I'll have that. Jay, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
You can find me on Twitter at Owen Design. That's always a quick way to just shoot me a message. But otherwise, go to buildingabusinessthatlasts.com. Once it's published, you'll be able to see that interview that Dave did on my show. So that'll be kind of cool too. Episode number 42 once it's released. And you can always find me just about anywhere on the internet. Just Google Jay Owen, and I'm out there. So whatever platform is easiest for you, find me there.
Excellent, Jay Owen. Thank you so much. Very much appreciate it. I wish you continued massive success.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. And thank you, Avanti listeners, for listening to the Avanti Entrepreneur Show. Truly appreciate you. If you want more of what we're doing here, go to AvantiEntrepreneurGroup.com. You can learn more about what we do, how we help people. We're setting up Avanti chapters in all different cities to help entrepreneurs with mastermind groups and events and coaching, etc. And then, of course, we have all my 100+ episodes for Avanti Entrepreneur Show at AvantiEntrepreneurGroup.com. Thank you so much, and have an awesome day.
Thank you for listening. Head over to AvantiEntrepreneurGroup.com for show notes and more helpful advice from entrepreneurs like you. Continue to find your entrepreneurial rhythm at the Avanti Entrepreneur Podcast.